Hello, everyone, and welcome for joining me. So NATO are warning that the Russia-Ukraine conflict is going to spiral out of control. We've got more knife attacks in the United Kingdom, more unemployment, and those guys who have been made unemployment now, I believe, are the lucky ones. We have got the Israel-Gaza ceasefire that kind of is holding but isn't holding as the Israelis conduct raids into the West Bank. There's been reports of people opening fire inside Gaza itself. Guys, and also remember months, maybe even over a year ago, one of my very first videos, and I've kept this up, nobody else has been talking about this like me, Antarctica, oil, the Falklands. Mainstream media are now understanding what I've been saying for months, well, best part of a year. The conflict, the amount of oil in the Antarctic region, in the British region of Antarctica is absolutely ridiculous. This is going to drag the United Kingdom into a conflict in that region. And of course, we have the storm blasting at the, blasting all day. So, if the roof comes up, if the roof comes off here, then I'll just let it roll, guys, and we'll just make more content. But anyway, guys, let's just get into this. So we'll start with the UK first. Morrison's are axing hundreds of staff in major cost-cutting exercise. I'll put all these links in the description. So that would be Morrison's, the greengrocers, the supermarket. Also, Sainsbury's to cut 3,000 jobs by closing cafes and some counters. And then yesterday there was another mass attack involving knives in Croydon. I'll put that link in the description. Also now. The situation in the Middle East, the situation between Gaza, Israel, and that whole region. The proposed ceasefire, I don't think it's going to last long, ladies and gentlemen. I really don't. I mean, there's reports of some skirmishes inside Gaza, and the Israeli troops have had to open fire. The Israeli troops have not stopped going in and conducting raids into the West Bank. So when you look at what's left of Gaza, you take a step back and think, right, is there any point in fighting over that anymore? Like, what are the people going to do? Because it is literally just concrete, chain link, and rubble. So that whole situation in the Middle East, it's not going anywhere quick. Now, as soon as Donald Trump took office, one of the things he said is they would lift restrictions on arms sales into Israel. So that to me is a big not a red flag, I guess. That is a big combat indicator, whether you agree with this or not. That is what's happening. We've also got the, on the fifth day as well, Israeli troops are opening fire on gunmen in Gaza. Again, it's very difficult to understand what the actual situation on the ground is. Different media reports are reporting different things. If you read from another, from another news outlet, they may say, Palestinian soldiers defend themselves against Israeli aggression, but then the Israelis will be claiming that these are it's very strange what's happening. I don't think this ceasefire in Israel is going to last much longer. But don't worry, if you're in the United Kingdom, that is not your concern. Your main concern is what's happening in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, and the conflict in that region. So let's just quickly, in fact, I didn't reset this map. Hang on. Let's just quickly go over to the, where are we now? Let's go over to the share map, the global, where is it? The Ukraine map, and we will see what's been happening there in the last, let's just go back a few days. Right, so we're on the 21st, we're on the 24th now, so let's just go back. Right, so this is from, I guess, the beginning of let's go back to the beginning of the month. We'll zoom in a little bit. That's too far. Okay. Remember, I think that I don't see any realistic proposal for a peace negotiation until Russia is up to the River Dnipro, or the Russian troops leave Ukraine and restore 2013 borders and agree to rebuild and repay, rebuild all the town cities that they've destroyed. So this area here, actually, I want to focus on. Veljeka Novosilka. So this is the end of last month, so less than a month ago. It's this Russian pincer movement that is, that place, this place now has gone. Soon they'll be turning their eyes to Pokrovsk. You see how they've started to come up, head north here. I think this aspect is going to come north and it's going to come round. These guys are just going to continue west. And at some point, that pincer movement that the Russians are experts in now, that movement will be completed around Pokrovsk. They will leave this road here. They will leave this road clear for the Ukrainians to extract. Nobody wants to fight, hold down enemy inside a built-up area. It's absolutely it's just hard to do. So, like the Russians have done in many, like literally all of their towns, all the places they've taken, they do this pincer movement, slowly grinding around them. You know, give the Ukrainians or the resistance forces, give those guys a chance to evacuate, and then as soon as the sufficient amount of evacuated, they'll close the road off, bombard it, and then that town is over. Anyway, guys, so the Ukrainians, and again, this is why it's going to affect you and me and everyone else. Ukraine is really struggling. There's an article out in Al Jazeera. Why is Ukraine struggling to mobilize its citizens to fight? Because there's none left. There's a really big problem at the moment with recruitment in Ukraine, as you would imagine. People think that this conflict started in 2022. It started in 2014, when with the annexation of Crimea, the annexation of various regions in the east of that country. Now, this conflict has been pushing, it's been driving, and it's not gone anywhere. So we're already 11 years in, I guess, you know, and people forget that. People forget that we're already 11 years into this conflict. Yes, it took a drastic shift in pace in 2022. But where we are now is a situation where we have poorly trained Ukrainians fighting poorly trained Russians and North Koreans. But the difference here is the Russian military understand how to use poorly trained troops. They understand how to use conscripts. But the Ukrainians again, guys, I'm speculating this. The Ukrainians would be under heavy influence from NATO command and NATO control. So those NATO command and control are trying to use those poorly trained, which essentially are conscripts, in the same manner that the Russians are using in the same manner that they would use their own troops, which is just not working. That's why I do feel that Russia have the advantage now and for at least the medium-term future, until NATO can get boots on the ground, and until those boots on the ground can be actually war-fighting NATO boots on the ground. So I'll share this one with you. Russia rejects the idea of NATO peacekeepers. Do you think that Russia reject that? Of course they was going to reject that. They was always going to reject that. And this is why we're coming against unpassable red lines now in any peace negotiations. The Ukrainians want security that the Russians are not going to keep pushing. The Russians want security that the NATO forces are not going to push against them. So right now, there is no way that anyone can agree on this until the Russians are up to the River Dnipro. Once they're at the River Dnipro, or they've left the country totally, then there can be some sort of negotiation for peace. But until then, everything's fake news. Nothing makes sense, and it's all, it's all pomp and circus. Guys, can you hear that wind? That is unbelievable. And then there's a warning of uncontrollable escalation, which is what will happen. Remember, at the moment, these guys are fighting a green-on-green military conflict. That's what the Russians want. The Russians do not want to commit themselves into another Afghanistan. The Russians don't want to commit themselves into, guys, this wind is absolutely insane. The Russians don't want to commit themselves into fighting another unseen enemy. And that's what we're risking right now. Moscow, 23rd of January, Russia on Thursday rejected the idea of NATO countries sending peacekeeping troops into Ukraine in the event of a ceasefire in the war with Russia, saying such a move would threaten to cause an uncontrollable escalation. And they're right, they are right, because remember what I said, these guys will go in there with their, with their peacekeeping t-shirts on, and then they will, at some point, they will take those peacekeeping t-shirts off, and they will then be warfighting t-shirts. Now, so what we've got there is the Russians rejecting any peacekeeping troops on the ground in Ukraine, and the Ukrainians, demanding peacekeeping troops on the ground in Ukraine. So it's an impasse. They can't move forwards. So what's going to happen? Continued fighting until the Russians are up to the River Dnipro. Guys, I've said that till I'm blue in the face. Now, again, some of the other things I've talked about is this asymmetric warfare, and I guess... And I guess the industrialization, I don't know what that was, but that sounded like something ripped. The industrialization, I guess, of asymmetric warfare. So remember when I talked about these ships, civilian ships geared out to become weapons? Well, here you've got North Korea, sending rocket launchers disguised as civilian trucks to Russia to support combined Russian-North Korean forces battling in Ukraine. So this is the real threat, ladies and gentlemen. These civilian vehicles now that have been remodeled into military vehicles, how do you deal with that? As a military, how do you deal with that? Especially if this thing says United Nations on the side of it, or if it says something like peacekeepers, or if it says something like World Food Aid or something. Can you imagine the public outcry? And this is what we're going to see very soon. Can you imagine the public outcry now where the Ukrainians have been fired on by a civilian vehicle that's got rocket launchers in the back? I think they want to come in. The Ukrainians fire back at that vehicle. They destroy it. And then the world media, the world press, they're just taking pictures of this. Oh, the Ukrainians are opening fire on civilian aid workers. That is the threat, and that's the real thing that's coming at the moment, guys. And then you're going to get liberal Western media jumping all over it with no idea what's happening on the ground. Guys, the battlefield is changing unbelievably now. That threat of asymmetric warfare, sabotage, non-conventional warfare, all these different aspects where, remember, you get the big NATO general coming up there and he says, the British military would destroy Russian conscripts within 36 hours. Yeah, that's true. How is the British military going to deal with when they're being attacked by civilian aid vehicles? Are they going to attack those civilian aid vehicles back, knowing that that is against their rules of engagement? No, of course not. How are they going to react when they're fighting a huge conscript army? And the British military have exhausted all their forces going through those conscripts, and then when they've got to the end of the conscripts, then there's the real troops at the end of it. The question about who's going to win here, it's a lot more open than people think. Yes, NATO stuff is better. Yes, NATO troops are better trained. Yes, the command structure is better. But what does better mean? The Russian side have a lot more troops, and I mean literally every Russian is a potential conscript. The Russians' military-industrial complex do not have the red tape that we have in NATO. They can build military equipment in any garage, any workshop, anywhere in that country, and that can be sent to the military. And very soon we're going to find out which one of these, which one of these ways forwards is the best. Anyway, guys, I want to keep this video short. The final thing I want to talk about is this oil in Antarctica. I'll put this link in the description. Mainstream media now seem to be understanding what I've been saying for over a year. The Arctic oil bonanza that could save Britain. We need to get there before Argentina. The frozen continent has never been so desirable, but as other nations try to get in on the action, a race to the bottom beckons. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going down this green agenda, and it's absolutely unbelievable. We've got this green agenda. The United Kingdom produced less than 1% of the world's emissions, yet we are taxing our population to the brink of, into poverty. Let me ask you guys this. Tell me an example in the whole of recorded history, in this planet or any other, when a population, when a people have been taxed into prosperity. It's not happening. It never happens. It never will happen. Guys, taxes lower people's standard of living. We have got so much oil, so much resources in Antarctica. It looks like we need to, it doesn't look like it. I've been saying we should be going down there and getting that oil for a long time. This is just another feather in the cap. This is just another reason why I believe the United Kingdom will become part of the United States by 2030. Guys, I've been saying that for such a long time, you know, and when I was saying that, people thought I was insane. Now people are thinking, well, you know, it might be a road forwards. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, all roads are leading to a global conflict of an industrial scale. That's enough for me, guys. I'm going to go outside, make sure the roof's still intact, and I'm going to mag to grid, and I'll get you another video later.